David's fight with Goliath is an example of this mode of victory. To the eye of sense, David had no chance whatever of conquering the mighty giant who had been defying the armies of Israel. But David, looking with the eye of faith, could see the unseen divine forces that were fighting on his side. And when Saul said to him, "Thou art not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for thou art but a youth, and he a man of war from his youth," David stood firm in his faith, and after recounting some of his past deliverances, said calmly, "The Lord that delivered me out of the paw of the lion and out of the paw of the bear, he will deliver me out of the hand of this Philistine." Saul, partly convinced by this strong faith, said, "Go, and the Lord be with thee." He could not, however, quite give up all trust in his own accustomed armor, and he armed David with a helmet of brass and a coat of mail and his own powerful sword, and David essayed to go. But David soon found that he would not be able to fight in this sort of armor, and he put it off, and took instead the simple weapons that the Lord had blessed before, his staff and his sling, and 5 smooth stones out of the brook, and thus equipped he drew near to the giant. When the giant saw the stripling who had come to fight him, he disdained him, and said contemptuously, "Come to me, and I will give thy flesh to the fowls of the air and the beasts of the field." And truly, to the eye of the sense, it looked as though this must necessarily be the end of such an apparently unequal battle. But David's faith triumphed, and he shouted a shout of victory before even the battle had begun. "Thou comest to me," he said, "with a sword, and with a spear, and with a shield. But I come to thee in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom thou defiest. This day will the Lord deliver thee into mine hand, and I will smite thee, and take thy head from thee, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. And all this assembly shall know that the Lord saveth not with sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands." In the face of such faith as this, what could even a giant do? Every word of that triumphant shout of victory was fulfilled, and the mighty enemy was delivered into the hands of the stripling he had disdained. And so it will always be. Nothing can withstand the triumphant faith that links itself to omnipotence, for this is the victory that overcometh the world, even our faith. The secret of all successful warfare lies in this shout of faith. It is a secret incomprehensible to those who know nothing of the unseen divine power that waits on the demands of faith, a secret that must always seem, to those who do not understand it, the height of folly and imprudence. We are all called to be good soldiers of Jesus Christ, and to fight the good fight of faith against worse enemies than those which attacked the Israelites. Our enemies are interior, and the giant that defies us is the strength of our temptations and the powerlessness of our own strength to resist. It is a hard and often a very discouraging fight, and many of God's children are weighed down under a dreary sense of apparently hopeless failure. They have sinned and repented again so often that they can see no hope of victory and are ready to despair. They hate sin, and they love righteousness, and they long for victory, but the good that they would they do not, and the evil that they would not, that they do. In the language of the apostle, they find a law in their members warring against the law of their mind, and bringing them into captivity to the law of sin that is in their members. They know they ought to conquer, but they do not know how. And it is for these that this chapter is written. If they can but discover the secret of this shout of faith, they will know how, for it is absolutely certain that it never fails to bring victory. Our Lord reveals the ground of this triumphant shout of faith. "Be of good cheer," he says, "for I have overcome the world." Not "I will overcome," but "I have overcome." It is already done, and nothing remains but for us to enter into the power of it. Joshua did not say to the people, "Shout, for the Lord will give you the city," but "Shout, for he hath given it." It must have drained all Joshua's willpower to his lips to render it possible for him to make such a statement, in face of the fact that the walls of the city were at that very minute standing up as massive and as impregnable as ever. But God was a reality to Joshua, and he was not afraid to proclaim the victory that had been promised even before it was accomplished. There is a great difference between saying the Lord will give and the Lord hath given. A victory promised in the future may be hindered or prevented by 1,000 contingencies, but a victory already accomplished cannot be gainsaid. And when our Lord assures us, not that he will overcome the world, but that he has already done so, he gives an assured foundation for a shout of the most triumphant victory. Henceforth the forces of sin are a defeated and demoralized foe, and, if we believe the words of Christ, we can meet them without fear, since we have been made more than conquerors through him who loves us. It is a well-known fact that as long as a defeated army can keep its defeat a secret, it can still make some show of resistance. But the moment it finds out that its defeat is known, it loses all heart and becomes utterly demoralized, and has no resource left but to retreat. The secret then lies in this, that we must meet sin not as a foe that has yet to be conquered, but as one that has already been conquered. When Rahab helped the spies who had been sent by Joshua to escape from the king of Jericho, she made this confession: I know that the Lord hath given you the land, and that your terror is fallen upon us, and that all the inhabitants of the land faint because of you. If we were gifted with eyes that could see the unseen kingdom of evil, I believe we also should find that a terror and faintness has fallen upon all the forces of that unknown region, and that they see in every man and woman of faith a sure and triumphant conqueror. It is because we do not know this secret that we meet our spiritual enemies with such fear and trembling, and suffer such disastrous defeats.